Have you ever gone to bed, maybe sometimes at 7 p.m.? You've had a long week, it's over the weekend, and you're so excited to be able to have a little bit of an early evening. You want to be able to rest, and then you realize as you're going to bed, it was 8, 9, 10, wherever time it was. And for some reason, it feels like the sleep ain't just coming by. You think probably there's just something wrong, and you try to think and reflect on the day. You try to reflect on all the things that you can think of. You try counting sheep, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then all of a sudden you look at the watch only to realize it's actually quarter past midnight. And still, from the time when you went to bed, your sleep hasn't just come. And this is a situation where maybe you may have been there one time in the past. You may be there today, or you may be there tomorrow. Sleeplessness is something that is very common and is something that can easily put somebody down and put somebody off. But a couple of friends that I've spoken to that suffer from insomnia to an extent that they've actually been prescribed melatonin so that they can be able to fall at least asleep and be able to get some night rest. And so in this very first broadcast that I'm actually excited to be able to record, I just thought the best thing to do will be to think about, or rather to discuss, the whole issue of sleep. Of course, when we sleep, we are designed to work during the day, and then in the night, we are able to kind of sleep. It's a time of a rest, it's a time of recovery, it's a time of allowing our bodies to be able to heal and to repair themselves. And that's why it's important after you've had a busy day or even at the end of the day to be able to go to bed and be able to fall asleep. However, the problem is that most of the time, maybe we carry around the weight of the day. We carry with us the anxiety about what tomorrow will bring. It could be thinking about the bills that you need to pay, or a loved one that is not feeling well, or some project that you have to do. And that in itself can get to a point of interfering with your ability to fall asleep. So, what naturally was meant to be a recovery mechanism for us has become to some extent something that we never get ourselves to completely switch off so that we can be able to sleep. The other thing as well is that we have become busy, and sometimes people find that it's just the easiest jobs they can find are jobs that they'll have to do in the night. You could be maybe you're a medical doctor, or you could be doing some shift work, or you could be into care industry and you're looking after people and you just have to work in the night. And that as well has a knock-on effect on your biological clock, because it does kind of change the circadian rhythms, and that can impact the way you are able to sleep, etc. That's why if you've ever been able to travel, for example, you've traveled from one country to another country where the time difference exists in those two different nations, you'll always feel the knock-on effect when your body biological clock does kind of in a way lag and doesn't want to catch up. So it gets to a point that there are so many things that will in actual fact want to fight against or for our sleep. And that's why it is important for us to always be able to think about what is it that we can do in order for us to be able to kind of unwind. When we are sleeping, we allow our bodies to do what they are meant to do in the night, so that in the morning we wake up refreshed and good to go for the next day. And so in the next couple of minutes, I'll just be spending some time to speak about some of the things that I feel are snatching or want to steal our sleep away from us. And then I will spend some more minutes just trying to explain how we can be able to overcome or to go around those things. Number one, of course, are these gadgets that we have. Gadgets are known to have the blue light, and this blue light does actually impair the way our body senses itself and sleep patterns and things like that. And it can actually keep you awake for a longer time than it is necessary. The other thing as well, it can be our stress coping mechanism. I don't know if you're like me, if you're something that is stressing you out, you find when you go to bed, you're lingering on that thing over and over again, and it's not giving you the peace of mind to be able to settle down and say, okay, it's done, or we have to let go of this so that we can be able to at least focus on sleeping. So carrying stress around with you into bedtime and things like that can impact your ability to be able to fall asleep. The other thing as well can be the interval at which we eat. If you're somebody that just basically decides you will have those very late dinners sometimes and you overfeed on those dinners, it gets to a point that by the time you're trying to go to bed, your body is already full, or rather your tummy is quite full, and it can just take time you tossing around until at least you feel that relief, and then probably you can be able to sleep. The other thing again is highly dependent on the temperatures of the room where we sleep. So if you're somebody, for example, in the UK at the moment, we've had very interesting weather. Today is sunny, tomorrow is snowing, the day after tomorrow is pretty freezing. And all those temperatures can actually affect. And of course, we've also have these economic crises with the energy crisis. And it gets to a point you can be like, oh, well, maybe I'm trying to save some energy. And then you end up maybe switching off the heating, or you feel like, well, it's so cold, I need to heat up. And then you heat up your room, it gets too hot. And when it gets too hot, the temperature differences can actually make you not be able to fall asleep. So you're going to bed and you'll be sitting there and you cannot be able to get your body to calm down to the temperature that the room is in so that you can be able to sleep. Those are some of the things that I can just think that actually can easily make us to go into bed and to stay in bed without sleeping. Of course, as I mentioned again, things like stress, but also worry about tomorrow. If you have, let's say, an exam tomorrow, you have a driving test, for example, or you have an important thing that is coming up, just that kind of nerves that you're thinking, how is it going to go? Am I going to make it? Or things like that. Or if you have some very important thing to do, sometimes it's just that kind of, it's natural to worry, and that can take away your sleep. But that's a one-off thing. It shouldn't be something every single day that you go to bed and you try to lie down and you can't sleep because you're constantly worried. And once it gets to that point, it can actually move away from being just worry to becoming anxiety. And that can have an impact on your emotional well being and can impact some of the nerves in the brain that sends the signals for you to be able to fall asleep. And it might be something that might be worthwhile discussing it to the health professional to find some solution about it. So now that we have identified some of the things that can actually impact us and cause us not to be able to easily fall asleep, so things I've mentioned, the blue light from our devices, gadgets, I've mentioned the temperature of the room, I've mentioned the time at which we are able to eat, I've mentioned things like stress and anxiety and worry, which are things that maybe we may have something that we can do about it, but some other times it can be just difficult to be able to deal with them. So let's try to find those things that are within our control that we can do something about it. Of course, there are also other things that can be medical reasons that are beyond your control, and they will need some medical interventions for you to be able to fall asleep naturally. So I've started by identifying those things that beyond doubt, there are things that you can do something about them yourself so that in the end they can be able to be resolved, and that will allow you to be able to have a sweet night's sleep. The first thing that we talked about is gadgets. So again, as I mentioned, that blue light has an impact on our brain and that can impact our sleep as well. Maybe it might be just good idea to kind of have a detoxing time, or a time of whereby you tell yourself, I will have the gadgets until maybe 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. And then you give yourself at least an hour so that you're staying away from that light so that it's not going to impact you as you go to sleep. And maybe that could really very much improve the quality and maybe even the quantity of the sleep that you are going to have. The other thing, as I mentioned, if it's something to do with stress, anxiety, and worry, those are things that affect us emotionally. They are things to do with our emotional well-being. It might be worthwhile. Maybe if something that is constantly worrying you, you might want to share it to somebody, a trusted friend, a counselor. If it's something that somebody can provide some form of counsel about it, And just sometimes it gives you some peace of mind to know that you've shared it with somebody who might just as well be able to give you a listening ear. If maybe there are people that have faith and they believe in some form of answers to prayer, they might just as well pray for you and give you that opportunity to be able to let go of that and maybe just kind of reflect on it and see the best way to handle it. If there are some times where you find that you're getting into like very, very severe levels of anxiety, worry, and stress, it might be worthwhile speaking again to a medical professional who will be able to advise you. Sometimes it could just need some cognitive behavior therapy. Sometimes it might need a bit of medication. Sometimes it might be some advice that they will give you that will help you, because the most important thing you need to think about is don't medicate the symptoms, medicate the reality or the real problem. Because number one, most of the time when we are having sleeplessness, we can say, okay, this is the symptom that I'm having. I have insomnia. I can't sleep in the night. But probably there's an underlying issue why you're not able to sleep. So instead of medicating that symptom, try to get to the root cause and medicate the root cause, which will automatically deal with the symptom. So you're cutting the tree from the roots and not just the branches and the leaves, and expecting at the end of the day the tree not to germinate again. So dealing with the thing from the root is much more important than just chopping off a couple of branches and leaves and expecting the condition or the situation to go away. The other thing, if it comes, for example, to things like feeding times, you can be very intentional about dinner times. What time do you want to eat? What time do you go to bed? They always suggest it's good to give yourself at least a couple of hours to allow the food that you've eaten to begin the digestion process before you go to sleep. That's also good. Number one, it will help you with things like weight loss, maintaining good body weight, so that you're not really ending up with all that storage of energy and things like that. But also, by the time you're going to bed, you're not really fighting with a full tummy, tossing around with a tummy that is feeling uncomfortable, because you're allowing the food to begin its journey into the digestive system and to begin breaking down before you go to bed. When it comes to the temperature of the room, always be intentional about ensuring that the temperature of the room where you're sleeping is a favorable temperature. If your room is too cold, you might want to heat it up a little bit so that it's a little bit warm. And if it's too warm, cool down a little bit, lower down the temperatures, because once you have a good temperature, and you can maybe just buy a simple thermometer or have maybe some, again, things like relative humidity of the room does impact the quality of the sleep. So if your room is constantly too humid as well, you find it much more difficult to sleep. And if you find that you're fighting with humidity in the room, you might want to buy a dehumidifier so that it kind of, in a way, brings that nice environment for you to be able to fall asleep so easily. The next thing to think about, again, when it comes to things like being able to fall asleep and being able to sleep very well and quick and easy, will be again things like clean beddings. I know it sounds a bit weird, isn't it? And it does find a little bit like kind of obvious. But sometimes if you're constantly sweating and your beddings are not clean, you get into bed and you're smelling the sweat from 2 days ago or something like that. It can actually psychologically prevent you from being able to sleep. Have you ever noticed the day when you have actually washed your beddings and there's that soapy smell, the conditioner smell in your bedding as you're trying to fall in, to go into sleep, and maybe you wash them and then you've given them a quick ironing and then they're very nice, the bed is well made. As you're going into the room, you're really feeling like you want to be in there, you're feeling the coziness and you want to really fall asleep. So it might just be as well having good kind of hygiene around it and setting for yourself targets and say, well, after this time I know my beddings are needing some cleaning, and then you go out again and do something about it. The other thing to think about or to check will be the lighting of the room. If your room is too light, when you want to fall asleep, of course, light is associated with keeping us awake. And if that's something that you're finding it difficult to sleep, it might just be that your room still is able to bring in the natural light. Some people like it that way because it helps them to be able to wake up in the morning. But if that is impacting your sleep, you might as well try to find like maybe some masks to wear around your some shade, something to wear around your eyes as you sleep so that it gives a bit extra darkness. You might want to invest in thick curtains or blinds so that it gives you that a kind of feeling of dark or night so that you can be able to fall asleep. There are also other things that you can do that are not related to the conditioning of the room or things like that, but you can take, let's say, a warm bath before you sleep. So it kind of, in a way, it relaxes you. You can practice meditation. So just getting to a point at the end of the day of just coming to that point of like letting go of the day, meditating and letting go in the sense of like allowing yourself to calm down, to rest, and to forget about all the things that have happened in the day, so that as you're going into bed, as you're going to sleep, you're kind of unwinding so that you allow yourself to kind of be able to fall asleep much more easily. The other thing is people suggest you can take like chamomile tea. These are calming teas that can help you to be able to knock you down and knock you off. But also things like, just some people suggest warm milk. You might have like a warm drink of milk that kind of soothes itself, soothes your body, and it can actually make you to fall asleep. And supposing you've actually done all these things and then you've slept, and then all of a sudden maybe you had a bad dream or a nightmare, and then you wake up, or you just kind of, in a way, all of a sudden you realize you're awake and it's in the middle of the night and you're trying to sleep again and it's just difficult. Maybe you're sleeping with somebody in the room and you can hear them snoring, you can hear the insects outside and everything around, the cars passing on the street, and you're kind of thinking, goodness me, why am I not falling asleep again? Or when will the morning come so that I can actually just wake up and do something? If that happens, it's so easy for us to kind of panic even the more, and that will make us to stay awake the more. But just kind of calming yourself down and going back into maybe choosing, you might choose maybe a good thing that happened in the day and reflect on that. Some people do say you might try to count sheep, one sheep, two sheep, three sheep, etc. I've never tried that, but it might be something worth trying and saying, if you start counting sheep as you kind of trying to fall back asleep, is that going to help you to be able to sleep again, or will you not be able to sleep again? But also, there's something very interesting about kind of, in a way, just being able to kind of find a rhythm or a focus or something so that you're taking your way or your mind away from the fact that you're not asleep into the fact that, and if anything, it happens that it gets to a point that you're just sitting there, well, you can do something useful that moment. You can decide maybe if you are somebody of faith, pray about some things, or if not, you can actually just do something that is quite different, productive. Or sometimes some people can decide, well, I'm going to wake up, go do some work, and then when I feel like sleeping again, going back to sleep, which can be difficult, but above everything, it can be a strategy that some people can adopt. I hope that this has been kind of a very general message around sleep. And if there are things that actually are interfering with your sleep, as I said, and it's something that I really want to emphasize with this podcast, don't just let those things to eat up your sleep and cause you to have sleepless nights, but rather, instead of having those sleepless nights, turn them into moments that you can learn. If it's a one-off thing, deal with it. But if it's something that is constantly reoccurring, you might want to deal with it from the roots rather than dealing with only the branches and the root and the leaves and expecting the problem to go away. Until next time, I hope this encourages you, and I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode.